Sick. All right, man. Welcome to the podcast. I'm stoked to chat with you. We've never chatted before, and yeah, I'm interested to see what you're about.
Hell yeah, dude. I really appreciate it. And before we jump in, I just want to thank you for, I've been listening to your music for a long time and like, your entire body of work. And I think it's really important and cool what you do to help people learn more about Ableton, like your dedication to the craft and not only Ableton, but just like stylistically and through your music and stuff. I think it's really cool and I appreciate it a lot.
Thanks, man. Yeah, right back at you. I was listening to a lot of your music preparing for this podcast, and yeah, I feel the same way.
Thanks, man.
When I was preparing for this interview, I read it was an old interview of yours about an EP called In the Dark, where you mentioned like you were stepping into sort of a world of musical freedom and just making quote unquote whatever the fuck you want. How do you feel like you balance this kind of artistic freedom with the pressure of commercial success and fan expectations?
That's like been a struggle for sure. I feel like I've kind of since the beginning, I feel like I've been trying to balance that since I first started putting music out in 2016. I play a lot of shows with a lot of bass music artists. I work with a lot of bass music artists. I started out in bass music, so it's that whole kind of thing where, you can't really control what people think that you are and all of that stuff. So mainly, wow, your cat, that's fucking awesome. Look, he just bounced into the scene.
Yeah, she lives up in the clouds most of the time. She just like will fucking skyrocket up the wall and jump into my acoustic clouds. It's funny
that's so great. So anyway, yeah, I guess musically, to my own detriment in a way, I don't balance it. I kind of just make anything I want, and then I try and kind of morph it into a DJ setting if it needs to be morphed into a DJ setting. And then when I actually get the opportunity to do headline shows, I can kind of have more freedom live in that way and do more live vocals and more live instrumentation and stuff.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like the move is to just make whatever you want and try to forget as much as possible about like the sales aspect of it. Like, how am I going to sell this and package this later? I think, yeah, I've always found the same thing. Like, just try to make like whatever and try as hard as you can to forget about that other shit, even though that's really hard to do. And then really, I think what the strat is to find somebody who's really, really good at marketing, or like somebody like a really good manager or something who's able to then take that and go like, okay, I can see a way in which we can package this thing up that you were just making and didn't give a fuck about, like, expectations and stuff. I can think of a way to package that and like give it to people in a way that they'll understand, and that will potentially be commercially successful.
Sure. I also think that like when you do pay attention to that, when you pay attention to the other end before the music, it seems as if there's like some sort of fast track to success. Like, like everyone's wanting this one thing, and if I just make these banging dubstep beats and like, if I make like the dopest double drops, and if I like do this and that, then like, I can come into the scene like, and it seems like there's a fast track, up the festival lineup and all this stuff if you play the game. And it's like, I think it's really cool, and I think that there's a lot of like value in it, and some people just love to make dubstep, like that's what they love to make, but it's just not worth the sacrifice to me musically, because like my whole life is about the craft, my whole life is about expression and art, and I'm way more deeper into that side of things.
Yeah, another thought that I've had is when you see those people who like fast track their way up through the festival scene, fast track their way up to like, tons of Spotify streams and all that kind of stuff, that they are, like you said, indeed just like they just truly love to make dubstep, and that is their genuine artistic expression, and that is kind of, and I feel like that genuine artistic expression resonates with people a lot harder, and that is potentially why those people get so big. And then I think other people who try to copy that by seeing like, okay, well, they did XYZ things and then they got to this point, well, then that means if I do XYZ things, even though it's not like in my essence of a being to want to do those things, that I too will fast track my way up there. But I think like 9 times out of 10 it might not work for that exact reason, because they aren't actually as genuinely passionate about making that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, man. And I'm sure you've seen it, all throughout the years, and being as innovative as you are with your music, I bet you have struggled with the same exact things, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be less innovative these days. I'm trying to make like just more normal sounding shit because I do like feel that I'm sort of on the fence. Like on one hand, I've said this so many times in my podcast, but on one hand, like I'm not so weak that I need people's like I need people to validate me and my music, but I'm also not so strong that I can just make whatever the fuck I want and give zero fucks about what people think. So, like you said, I'm
Interesting.
like also trying to balance those things.
I like the simple approach though. I've always dealt with that as well, like because I'm kind of just a basic like rock guy. So some of the most rock songs, some of my favorite rock songs, they're pretty simple, I mean, look at Nirvana and all them grunge guys. Like, I mean, other than like Stone Temple Pilots and some Soundgarden stuff that got really complicated, like quarterly, it's all pretty simple. And some of the best stuff just resonates very simply. So I like that approach too. I try to take it myself as well.
Mm. So you're like a multi instrumentalist too, right? Like you play instruments, you sing, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What instruments do you play, by the way?
Guitar, piano, and vocals, essentially. That's it.
Okay, and you're a producer as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you feel like having like such a wide array of tools at your disposal expands your creative boundaries, or do you think that it can sometimes make the decision-making process more complex and give you some sort of like option paralysis?
There's definitely option paralysis, but I think it helps expand because if I think about like the dedication to the production craft, and I'm not great at guitar. Like I can play guitar, I'm not great. I can play piano, I'm not great. I can sing well, and like I can produce very well. So it's like I almost feel like there is there's a way easier way to get what's on your mind out with those tools available. But yeah, like I know what you mean about option paralysis. That's more of a producer thing for me. Like when I'm going into like sound design and stuff and trying to make some sort of cool like bass noise, then I could get stuck with like all day long. But yeah, no, I like the array that the instruments can bring to the options of producing and stuff.
Mm. I also read somewhere that you expressed that there needs to be a balance between studio work and live performance. And I guess like each of those things kind of offers a different kind of creative fulfillment. How do you see the role of live performance in today's digital age where virtual interactions are increasingly prevalent? Do you think
Yeah.
the essence of a live performance is able to be captured virtually, or do you think that live music will always have its place?
I think live music will always have its place, just simply because I think that a lot of the allure is just to get into the same room as the person that you're enjoying the music of, or that you'd like to, share the energy with. I think even something as big as like a Taylor Swift, where like you could be fucking hundreds and hundreds of feet away from them, this person that you're listening to all the time is right there, like I think that is got some really cool energy to it. And I do think that there's something magical, unexplainable about the exchange of energy between you and a crowd. Although, I do think that a performance could be equally as great virtually, like the artist's performance and their expression, and, they sing really well and play really well, then that's great. But I don't think anything could ever replace, the in-person vibe, the magic there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's like that unexplainable essence of feeling the energy of a bunch of people around you and a bunch of people experiencing the same thing simultaneously, whereas virtually that feels more disconnected for sure. I also feel like music, like especially electronic music and especially bass music, is like a full body experience type thing. Like if you're not getting that giant sound system like rattling your chest and like shaking your Adam's apple or whatever, I don't think it's quite the same, listening to it at home on your Logitech computer speakers or whatever.
It is a new novel thing to be able to like the sub energy that is brought at these shows is like I think you hit the nail on the head. Like that is the entire phenomena, you know, like it just didn't happen like that with live music before bass music, you know, before dance music. So
Yeah,
have
I
you ever
think
fucked with those sub packs?
Yeah, I used to have one, and I tried it the way that they said to try it by putting it on the back of my chair.
Mm-hmm.
And what I actually preferred in the end was putting it on the floor, and then I would put my feet on it,
No
and then
shit.
I would like write music, and the sub would like shake my feet, and it kind of felt like I was standing on a stage that had subs under it. And I personally found that to be like the point of my body that like was more reactive to sub actually than my back.
That's crazy. I like that though. Yeah, because sometimes on your back, like, especially if you're in headphones or whatever, it can kind of like travel up to your ears a little too quickly and
Yeah,
screw
it
with your
can
ears
like
a little
maybe
bit.
distort your perception of what you're hearing a little bit. But also the other thing is like the cabling system and shit for it. Like you have to plug it in, and then like you have to only get out of your chair like one way all the time
Yes,
because
yes.
otherwise you'll like wrap all the cables up in your chair and shit. So I
You know
didn't
how
like
many
that
times I've
either.
exited the wrong way and just ripped everything out of everything?
Yeah, I did the same. I think everyone who's had a sub pack has done that like multiple times. So in the end, yeah, I found just having it on the floor like made more sense logistically for the cables as well.
Yeah, that's funny.
So you've been known for like blurring genres and creating something fresh. You mix a lot of rock and a lot of electronic and pop music and stuff like that. What do you think the future of genre in music is? And do you think that genres are pretty much becoming obsolete? And if so, what do you think this means for the next generation of artists?
It's interesting. I feel like there's gonna be a lot more of these melting pot type of artists because there is so much access now to music that like I think more artists are going to be able to grow up exposed to an unbelievable amount of music. Like kind of how I did. Like I grew up in the iTunes days, and I would just crate dig on iTunes the same way like music enthusiasts would crate dig, you know, years and years ago with vinyls and stuff. So I do think there's going to be a lot of melting pot artists that just kind of fuse everything, and maybe it becomes unrecognizable at some point. But I do think that like the essence of some genres will always last because there's always those moments where you like go back to the simple, you know, like just a rock band, like just a straight up rock band in the world of all the electronics that we use and stuff. I think that there's like something really cool about a straight up rock band. I think there's something really cool about, you know, just going back to like old country roots. I'm not like a huge country fan, but like I know that there are some artists that are trying to bring back like the older style of country where it's just more simple and it's more bluesy and you know, so I think that just there's obviously so much going on. So there's so much history to music that there's always going to be something that you can now pinpoint, oh, that sounds like that and that sounds like that, you know. So I just hope it doesn't like I hope I don't ever become so out of touch that I just straight up like don't understand at all why something is popular, you know?
Mm.
I fear that a little bit because I like get in my own head about genres. I get in my own head about music. I'm like so into music that sometimes I get like music blindness where I'm just like, I don't even know what's going on anymore.
Yeah, that's the sign that you need to take a break.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't know what the future is. I hope that in the near future that there are more fusions of like electronic music and the bass music rhythm. I think should be applied more to popular music. I do think that pop music would thrive with some really interesting sounds and stuff. You know, I think that there's a cool opportunity there.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's starting to happen more. Porter Robinson had a tweet once that I really liked where he said, if you like don't understand why something is popular, then you just haven't like experienced the context in which it's supposed to be enjoyed or something along those lines. And I thought that
Interesting.
made a lot of sense. Like I didn't really understand psytrance until I went to like a proper psytrance party, and then I was like, this is actually crazy.
No shit. Yeah, because on its own, you know, just in your living room or whatever, it could seem a bit repetitive and stuff.
And out of place. I mean, like, that's just not the kind of music I feel like to listen to in your living room. You know, your living room, you want to listen like down tempo or something like that.
Yeah. Yo, real quick, I thought it was really cool. I just want to give you your flowers on the fact that you scored Mom and Dad.
Oh, true. Did you watch
I
that movie?
Wait, you didn't watch it?
No, I did. I'm asking if you watched it.
Oh, yeah. But
No, I watched it like 400 times.
yeah. The soundtrack is incredible though. I just re-listened to the soundtrack this morning, and dude, it's so great. Like the experimentation, but then like the chords and everything's just so masterfully crafted. And that was like from 2018. That's just crazy, man. Like props
Thanks.
to you. Very cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I did that soundtrack whilst I was on a tour. Like I was traveling
What?
around in a Sprinter van, and then like in the green rooms, I was mostly just working on that shit right before like shows and stuff.
What was
Yeah,
that like? Like, what was the process like? Because that's always been a dream of mine to do some sort of scoring type of work.
So my understanding of it was that the director, Brian Taylor, he wanted to do like a John Carpenter thing with it, where like John Carpenter, you know, he like directed The Thing, you know, that Marvel film a long time ago, and his strat was like he would direct the movie and then he would also like score the movie himself, and it was pretty like simple scoring. It was just kind of like pulsy synth type stuff and like kind of brooding ambient stuff. And so Brian Taylor was like, I want to do something like that. I want to score the movie like John Carpenter did with his own movies. And so he started trying to learn Ableton, and I guess he like went to YouTube and he like found my tutorials.
No way.
And he was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna get this guy to do it. He's like, this is
That's
too hard.
amazing.
Yeah, so, and I think he like knew my music before that, but yeah, I think that was kind of like the point at which he decided I'm just gonna get that guy to do it. And then he just sent me an email. Like I just got an email in my inbox one day from Brian Taylor being like, "Yo, you want to score this movie?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course."
That's so cool. I wonder if he expected though the breadth of what you were able to do there, because like, you know, you make a lot of electronic music with like the rhythm and all that stuff, but like you ventured into some like really cool, like, you know, when Dead Mouse put out that album While 1 over 2 or While 1's Greater Than 2, I think it's called, or whatever, where he did a lot of like piano, just straight piano tracks and stuff. Like you captured a lot of that stuff. I saw it was released on Mousetrap, that's why it reminded me of it. But like you captured a lot of that weird like electronic fused with simple chords and piano and all that stuff. Is very cool.
Yeah, Brian definitely had a lot of the say in that stuff. Like, you know, I would do something and send it back, and he'd be like, "No, that's not right." And then he would like send me a reference and be like, "I want it to be more like this." And then it took I don't know, a month or two of that, like of me not getting it, and him being like, "You need to make it more like this." Like he had a very strong idea of what he wanted for the soundtrack.
Interesting.
But like once I got it, I was like, okay, this is easy now. But yeah, just like trying to find the thing that he was like. Because he's also like not a musician, right? So the way he would like describe things to me verbally, he would use a ton of words that like that didn't like elicit any tangible sense in my mind at all, you know? So it took a while to like find the middle ground there, but yeah.
Yeah, they want it to be harder, but also softer, and they want it to be faster, but it also needs to be slower. I've dealt with a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, but like harder actually means faster, and softer actually means like quieter or something. I don't know. Have you done any scoring or game stuff?
Yeah, in the gaming world, I mean, not necessarily scoring stuff. I've done some work with gaming companies. I've done a few of the Valorant anthems for Riot Games. That's
right. I remember seeing that come up on your Spotify when I was listening the other day. It was tagged like Grabbitz and Valorant had their own Spotify profile as well.
Yeah, that's been really cool for me and opened up a lot of doors, and I was definitely able to get more cinematic with those types of tracks because, you know, they're following along to like an epic animatic that they had created at the time. So that was really cool. But no, like I haven't been able to fully like do anything other than just me experimenting or just like scoring old No Country for Old Men or something like that.
How did you get the Valorant gig? Did they just also hit you up one day, or was that through someone you knew, or?
One of my managers knew somebody on the creative team over there, and when they were just exchanging an email, they saw that they were managing me, and they had been a fan of my Res collaboration, someone else, and they were like, "Yo, do you think he'd be down to do something kind of similar to this for us?" And we just kind of took it from there.
Yeah, that's sick. Yeah, I feel like those jobs, like in my experience, like almost 100% of the time, they just come from like me doing like whatever work that I want to do, and then somebody finds it and hits me up and goes like, "Yo, you want to also do this thing?" Like whenever I've done a lot of stuff now for games and films, and whenever anybody asks me like how to get those jobs, I'm like, I have no idea. Like, just wait for an email.
Yeah, just exist and work and
Yeah.
and put stuff out into the world.
Yeah, for real. So I also read that you mentioned that you are influenced by artists like Nine Inch Nails, and you're wearing a Nine Inch Nails shirt now, and Coldplay. But do you have any like non-musical influences? Like, are there any philosophical or like cultural ideas that resonate with you and influence your work?
I guess I would say the most influence that I have outside of music would be film. And obviously music has a lot to do with film, but like I'm a huge film buff. I like movies a lot. I like television series. And I like art. Like, so I like a lot of visual media and visual stimulation. So I would say that, like, just dudes that have changed up movies, like, Fincher and Tarantino, and I'm a big Scorsese fan as well. Like, I love the art of like being able to write dialogue and like, prose writing and things that can make you feel in that sort of way as well. I try and kind of incorporate it into my music in a sort of like cinematic type of way. I think that's had the most influence.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Tarantino is insane. I love his movies.
Yeah, I know. I feel like it's touchy with some people. Like, some people think that if you're like obsessed with Tarantino, that you get like basic or whatever. And I'm like, yo, you don't understand. Like, he's a fucking master of filmmaking and didn't go to school and all that stuff. Like, he just watched movies, which is kind of how I learned music. So I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like going to school a lot of the time is just learning the right terminology and words to describe things that you potentially already know if you're just in love with the craft anyway.
Sure. And there's value to that for sure. But, just in being able to communicate that, when you're in a group setting or something, I'm sure in film you'd probably have to do it more so because you have to command an entire crew, With us, we kind of just put the thingy on the thing and we thing it up,
Right. Yeah, in terms of like philosophical ideas or just like non-musical ideas, I was chatting with Supertask the other day, and he said something interesting. He said one of the things that influences like him and inspires him the most is like the physics of sound systems. Like, how can he like flex the sound system in such a way, like just trying to find the outer limits basically of what sound systems can do. I thought that was kind of interesting and fun.
That's what conclusions had he come to, other than maybe like the obvious, clipping the fuck out of something and, like making the distortion sound that certain type of way? Like, is there other things that he has found in that experimentation?
I can't remember exactly what his answer was to that, but I would assume that the answer is that simpler wave types get expressed more clearly and loudly on sound systems than complex wave types. Because when you think about it, like the physics of a speaker, or let's say it's just a sine wave, the compression part of the sine wave is just the speaker pushing out, and then it comes back to a zero crossing, and then the rarefaction side of the sine wave is the speaker sucking in, and then it comes back to the zero crossing. So like the simpler that you can get that kind of forward backward motion happening, I think the better that your sound will be represented through a speaker.
Interesting. So like more synthy style, like kicks and snares possibly, rather than like the real dirty, gritty live sampled ones?
Yeah, perhaps. I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess maybe they could be live as well if they were like, filtered in such a way that they were just simpler waveforms maybe.
Interesting.
And I guess just making sure that stuff comes back to zero crossings before like expanding again and stuff like that, so the speaker has time to like do the thing properly.
Interesting. Yeah, that's outside of my pay grade. That's crazy.
True. You would be a good person to ask this question. Actually, I've asked this to a few people. So you have music, and that obviously like elicits some sort of like vibe and feeling, but then you also have words, which are kind of like they have like a more tangible meaning to them than music, because like music is a little bit subjective. Some
Sure.
things that might, elicit a vibe and an emotion in someone might elicit a completely different thing in another person. How do you sort of balance these two? Like, do you think that music or words have more ability to elicit meaning?
Oh man, I mean, I don't know which one has more. I know that like music for me, even alone in its instrumental ways, and like, some of my favorite people that have created very cool cinematic vibes or cool instrumental vibes can immediately put me into a spot where I can start thinking of things that I just wouldn't be thinking of without it, So, but also I'm very creative and imaginative, and I'm able to kind of like put myself in that, zone. I think that more universally, probably lyrics or words or written expression, people could probably grasp onto easier, because it's just straight to it. And even if it's like a vague lyric or something, which I love, because I don't like writing in too much specificity. Like, I don't think that should be, like I find that like in even some, I don't mean to keep mentioning Taylor Swift, but like, my wife like loves fucking Taylor Swift. She'll listen to her all the time. So I know this shit. Like, I'm just hearing it all the time. And like, she's very specific, and she's very much like, we laid on the floor and the wine spilled and it left a stain, and it, this and that. And like, I'm very vague, like just saying general things like, don't let go or something. And if you hear something like that, you're just like, you can apply those words to many things, and then in combination with music, now you can definitely get to that spot, of feeling.
Yeah, it's more like batch processing. You can,
yes.
You can batch a bunch of ideas out to different people simultaneously via one conduit, which can potentially mean a billion things.
Sure. Yeah.
I would say music elicits more meaning than words because it's cross-cultural. So like you could show, a piece of instrumental music to somebody who doesn't speak English, and if it has words or not, like the music will still have meaning.
Yeah, just the melody can be grasped on by everybody. I feel that.
Yeah. Do you think that music is a universal language, or do you think that it's fundamentally subjective and shaped by personal and cultural contexts?
I mean, I think it's obviously both, but yes, I think it's a universal language for sure. I think it could be boiled down to be a universal language. You can have a simple melody with simple chords that are just inherently sound good. I don't think anyone can say that they don't sound good. I think that there are then like nuances placed on it culturally that could maybe not sound good to one group of people that does sound good to other groups of people. Like if you were to take like quarter tone music, like, and listen to it, like some people might not get it, or they might not get like a certain type of singing style that's done by like more Indian cultures or even Asian cultures, and their instruments make odd noises, and we've got like a dubstep over here which they would probably not understand if you were not exposed to it. So I think the nuances get more cultural, but like a simple, I think like the more simple the music is, the more universal it would be, I guess. It was a really like word vomity answer, but
no, it makes sense. Have you ever read the book This Is Your Brain on Music by Daniel Levitin?
No, but I've seen it and I would like to. Is it a good read?
It's insane. Yeah, it's like highly recommend. There's some research I think that's mentioned in that book. It might be a different book, but he was talking. It was, I don't know if it's for sure this book. I think it was that there's been research that shows that it doesn't matter like who's listening to music, but it like activates all the same parts of the brain, regardless of like culture or context or anything. Apparently music is the only thing that activates like 100% of your brain. Like reading doesn't, like watching film
No
doesn't.
shit.
Music, like, yeah, but when you play someone music, it like lights up every single part of their brain. And another interesting thing that I'm reminded of now I'm thinking of that book is this thing. It's like a psychoacoustic effect called restoration of the missing fundamental. So basically, if you play somebody like a 440 hertz sine wave, there is a neuron in their brain that's flickering 440 times per second to like, I guess that's like they hear the 440 hertz sine wave, it hits their ear hairs or whatever start flickering at 440 times per second. That gets converted to a 440 time per second neuron flicker in their brain as electrical energy, and then they hear that as that. But if you like take a melody and you remove the fundamental frequency of all of those, like let's say you do it with a piano, right? But you remove the fundamental of the piano and play that same melody, your brain will still like flicker at all of those rates. So you like it makes up the fundamental. They did this with an owl. They played it a melody where they had removed all of the fundamentals, and they measured the amount of times per second the neurons were firing in the owl's brain, and then they converted those times per second into sine waves, and then what they heard coming out the other side of the brain of the owl was the melody. It like remade up the melody in its brain.
Whoa. Wait, so when you say remove the fundamentals, you just mean that you're just hearing all of the harmonics and the actual like base frequency that all the harmonics are based off of are still there, but the fundamentals are gone, and you'll like replace the fundamental essentially just by hearing all the rest of the.
Yep.
Whoa.
So like, you know, if you play a piano note, you've got like the main bottom thing, and then if you look on a spectrograph, you've got all those harmonics that'll lay it up, and those harmonics in that specific way are what tell our brain that sounds like a piano. And yeah, if you just remove the fundamental of all of that, your brain somehow still goes, okay, I know that's a piano and I know where that fundamental is supposed to be. And then your neurons like flicker at all those rates to try and remake up the thing, which is also like, I heard Noisier talking about this like as an interesting mixing concept, that you can actually remove a lot more fundamental out of sounds than you think, because your brain will just make up the difference anyway. And as a result, by removing all of those fundamentals out, you like gain more headroom and stuff.
Yeah, they would know. That's fucking, that's really cool. Yeah, I always get caught up in how much to like high pass stuff, and you know, I always think that I'm thinning everything out too much when I'm trying to make more headroom in the lower area of the mix.
130 hertz is the magic number, in my opinion.
And just cut it super sharp, or cut it not super sharp.
On super sharp on anything that's not your kick or your sub. That's my strat.
130.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
On anything that's not the kick and the sub, but like any mid bass layers, anything else. And then if it's like hats or whatever, I'll do it more like 500 or 1,000 or something.
Sure. Damn, that's cool. That fucking, the vibration stuff is really nuts. That makes me think about like, you know, like the healing frequencies, the healing powers of certain frequency. You know, people do them bowls and shit.
Yeah, like the 432 hertz theory stuff.
Yeah, like what is that again though? That's saying that we're not supposed to be fundamentally at 440. We're supposed to be down.
I think the argument is that originally music was all at like 432 hertz, and if you like use this Pythagorean scale, the ratios are like a bit cleaner looking and the math is a little cleaner looking, and the Nazis or something switched it over to 440 at some point for some reason or another, and now that's the standard all over the world, and apparently it like fucks with us and is not as healing or something, like you said. But the whole thing is kind of like a weird theory, because if you think about like what a hertz even is, it's a measurement of cycles per second. And the way that we measure seconds is inherently wrong anyway, because a day is not actually 24 hours. It's like 23.96 hours or something like that. So like if you break that all the way down to seconds, like 440 is not 440, and 432 is also not 432 because we measure time incorrectly.
Sure. So they're all just approximations anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the actual reason why they went to 440 was either to do with like orchestra instruments being able to tune to each other a bit easier because of it, or because singers had a like hard time hitting low notes at 432 or something like that.
Interesting.
But either way, you see a lot of this shit on YouTube where somebody will like just take a song and they'll just pitch it down by 8 cents with like, you know, Ableton's clip pitching or with you know, a frequency shifter or something like that. And then you get these people who are like, oh, it sounds so much warmer, so much richer. It's like, yeah, of course it does. It's lower in pitch. Like stuff that's lower in pitch will always sound warmer.
Yeah. I don't know if I buy into that whole phenomenon, but
but also the other thing is like what they're doing, like those people are really fucking dumb, because that's not even like the theory in the first place. The theory is like the scale, which is like the Pythagorean scale. And when you just take a song that's already made in like equal temperament, pitch it down by 8 cents, it doesn't change the ratios of all of the notes.
Interesting. Yeah, I never understood the temperament of a piano or any of that kind of stuff.
What do you mean?
Like in certain plugins, certain piano plugins and stuff, it will offer you the ability to like change the temperament or something. And I think it has something to do with the mathematical things that you're talking about. But it's like, you know, sometimes the higher parts of the piano will not be tuned perfectly with the very bottom parts or something.
Yeah, so what that is like, so you have an octave, which is 12 notes.
Yeah.
Equal temperament is when you take that octave, so from 440 to 880, and you break it up into equal parts. So each note is like an equal amount to the next note. And then you have like these alternate tunings, you know, like Hirajoshi tuning or Pythagorean tuning, or you know, some like maybe Eastern tunings or something like that. And that is where like, you know, C to C sharp might be closer together than C sharp to D, which might be further apart, and so on and so on.
Interesting.
So yeah, that's what temperament is. And I think that the reason we just do equal temperament is because like it's just simpler to tune instruments that way for the most part. But I mean, non-equal temperament stuff is sick. Have you messed with it much? Like,
I don't think I've messed with the non-equal temperament stuff, but I've definitely like manually tried to detune things slightly, you know, especially in like synths and stuff. Some of my favorite stuff is all just slightly off, or 3 different instruments, they're all just kind of slightly off, and it creates such a cool effect.
Yeah, I agree. Like most of Aphex Twin's music is, you know, sort of detuned in this way, and it all kind of sounds like haunted and broken, but in this really interesting way.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, the problem, I think, when you go to doing non-equal temperament tuning stuff is it really limits your tool set, which can also be a good thing as well, I guess. Like, for example, I think, you know, some plugins like Serum can maybe do some alternate tuning, maybe it can't. I think Contact can, I think Zebra 2 can. There's some synths that can do it, but not every synth can take tuning files or Scala files. So
sure, but limits. You know, what's the difference between like, then you just use your normal tools and then you've got that one element that's just slightly off or different or whatever. It could be really cool, you know? I've got like an upright piano that's tuned horribly that when I layer it in with everything sounds beautiful, you know? So it's all just mixing it up, you know?
Yeah, I love pianos that sound fucked up. Like you go into like the one that comes to mind is in the green room of the Black Box in Denver. They got this piano that just sounds like fucking shit, but it's fun. I like it.
You ever get a voice memo of it or something?
I have not, because usually it's in the green room, so it's like music playing and shit. Yeah, though that could also be cool, I guess. How do you hope that your legacy gets remembered in terms of how people like remember you and your music?
Oh, wow. I just hope people are able to feel something when they listen to my music. So if anything, I hope that I'll be remembered for my dedication to that and my dedication to just always trying to make the best art. And, I think that I've made it clear with my, followers and fans and anyone that listens that I am dedicated to that. At this point, at least I've been doing it for long enough to where everyone knows that I'm just kind of dedicated to the music. And whether you like it or not, if you like my more dubby stuff, or if you like my more whatever stuff, I'm always just making what I feel is the best art in the moment. And I try to encourage as many musicians as possible to do that because it's where you get the best stuff, in my opinion. So I guess that's what I'd want to be remembered for.
So that's what you hope to be remembered for. What do you think you'll be remembered for?
Oh, I don't fucking know. Could be not remembered at all,
True.
It's the case for a lot of us, and even people who are remembered in a couple hundred years, you won't be remembered anyway. So
true, yeah. Skrillex is the only one from our era that's going to be remembered. Let's be real.
Yeah, dude. Listen to how we idolize Mozart. Do you think that dude ever thought that we'd be still Mozarting to this day?
Maybe. Hard to say. I don't know much about Mozart, like maybe like what kind of person he was. Maybe he was like
a little
super
narcissistic.
egotistical.
Maybe he did, yeah.
Was he actually?
I think so. I mean, I think he knew he was the best. I think he had a lot of struggles in life, but I think he knew that he had something like phenomenally that nobody else around him had.
True.
Watch Amadeus.
I have seen that movie, but not for a long time. I should watch it again for sure. Yeah, one day if Skrillex has that, if he's just like, yeah, I know it's the shit. And like,
I feel like he has to know that he's the shit, but I think he's just incredibly modest. I've heard from a lot of people that he's incredibly modest, and he probably takes that approach all the time. But if you dug in there, dude, you know that he knows he fucked shit up in the world.
True. All right, I got one more question for you, and this is something I've been asking a lot of people lately because it's just been something that I'm interested in personally. What do you think, in your opinion, what is the minimum viable set of shit that will make music, and at what point does it become not music?
Interesting. What's the minimum amount of things that can constitute something being music?
In your opinion, yeah. I mean, because obviously this is different for everybody.
I would say at least 2 sources of pitch.
Okay.
I guess there doesn't have to be repetition, but repetition would help me a whole lot more if there, I think 2 things could just be making fucking noises, and at one point I'd be like, all right, that's not music. But if 2 things were making the same noises and it was repeating in some way, then I'd find it easier to consider music at the bare minimum. But
so like, let's say there's 2 birds and they're chirping like beep boop beep boop, like that's music.
I think it could be, yeah. It's bird song, I mean, if I took that recording and, I'd be able to take that recording and expand on the musicality of it, I think. But at one point, does something become not music? I don't know. This is tough because, philosophically, there's music in everything. And I even hear music when people are speaking. I hear pitch, and I hear how pitch affects emotion. And, when people are going up and down in their pitch and this and that, like I hear music in everything. I hear music in machinery. I hear music in CAT scan machines and shit. So it's like, I guess just a source of pitch, I guess. But then at the same time, something could be musical if it's just kind of percussive. I don't fucking know. That's a hard ass question, dude. What's your answer to that?
So I the best answer I got, and the one that I resonated the most with, was from this dude named Seppa. And he mentioned that he went to a drum and bass party in a warehouse, and then on the way home on the train, like all the sounds of the train sounded like drum and bass to him. And I've had this exact same experience. Like when I was younger, I went to like a warehouse party and I ate like acid and stuff like that and listened to drum and bass in a squat warehouse party thing for like 12 hours straight. And then I got on the train, caught the train home, and as I was sort of like sitting on the train coming down off acid, like all of the cluttering and clanging and shit of the train on the tracks sound like was making drum and bass music in my head. So I mean, I think the answer is music is in your brain. It's in your head. It doesn't exist. It's kind of like that Japanese koan, right? Like if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound kind of thing? Like it can exist anywhere, but ultimately it, I think, depends on when and how you perceive the sound and if you're like in a state to accept it as music or not.
Interesting. Yeah, you were replacing the fundamentals of drum and bass to the clanking.
Yep.
To bring it all back around.
Yeah.
It is very true, though. It's very true. It's if you're looking for it, I guess, because you could just stop in the middle of the street and try and find something musical. I think you probably could.
Yeah, 100%. But one thing I have been interested in lately is finding the minimum viable thing that is music that I feel that way about like almost all the time. And if I remove one thing from that piece of music, then it's no longer music. Now I look at it as noise. I'm trying to find that like barrier, like that boundary, that line.
It's really interesting. That's really cool. And you've been focusing a lot more on simple stuff. You said you've been trying to simplify it down. Like, what's your process been like in trying to do that?
So I think like back in the day when I was working on stuff in like, you know, the early 2010s or whatever, I wouldn't like if anything in music was too obvious. I wanted everything to be a subtlety, and I didn't want like a, you know, obvious melody or an obvious rhythm or an obvious anything. I wanted everything to be like a, you know, puzzle. And I think over time I've just kind of gotten more into like obvious stuff. I'm more like, all right, obvious beat, obvious melody, obvious chord progression. And that's in my eyes like simplifying it rather than sort of, it might not even, like I used to look at all that stuff as kind of like cheesy, but now I kind of look at it as like weak songwriting if it doesn't have that.
Sure. What do you think is like the most commercially successful, or can you think of any examples that are like commercially successful music that is like a puzzle and is not obvious, but is very successful regardless, where like if you yourself were to turn something into an A&R, they'd be like, oh, you got to simplify the drums, but yet it's like a number one or something on the charts?
I don't know if I can think of like number ones that are like this, but I know like Niels Fram, right, is really successful, or John Hopkins is really successful, but I would say a lot of their stuff is like pretty experimental, or you know, Otto A. Totland or something, which is kind of just piano music, but it's like really kind of complex and cool vibey piano music. But yeah, I think yeah, that's the first thing that comes to mind, I guess. It's not like a number one Billboard charting thing or whatever, but it's definitely like a on the weirder side of music and quite successful. You know, like in the UK, you could basically build an entire festival around John Hopkins, I think.
So cool. I loved it when Coldplay employed John Hopkins for Viva La Vida album and beyond. I think they worked with him.
They did? He produced that album?
Yeah, I don't know if he produced it single-handedly, but like they, you know, like Light Through the Veins, John Hopkins.
Oh, right. Is that an album of his?
It's just a song. It's like the one that's like
boo, 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 boo. Sounds like a John Hopkins melody.
Yeah, it's like whatever, but they like took that theme itself and like licensed it from him or something, and then like used it all throughout the album. There's like a hidden track that is basically just like a reproduction of Light Through the Veins, and then I think he did a lot of other synth work on the album. And then he also produced Midnight by Coldplay, which is like that vocodery, super like lo-fi track.
Well, there you go. And did any of those Coldplay songs become like number ones?
I mean, I don't know about number one, but yeah, I mean, you know, incredibly commercially successful. And I've always commended Coldplay for their experimentation into the electronic world. I mean, I still value their first two like straight rock albums where they were just kind of softer rock. But, you know, they really are kind of trying to be on the frontier of mixing all of that stuff together. They get a bad rap from some people, but it's weird.
Yeah, I'll need to give them another chance. It's not that I think they have a bad rap in my mind. It's just, I know I've heard their biggest song, Yellow, like on the radio in Australia a ton of times. And I guess like at some point I just decided that they weren't for me. But yeah, I mean, I'll give them another listen. I didn't know that they had John Hopkins on an album, so I'm interested to hear that actually.
Yeah, definitely check out Midnight. Midnight's a good one that I think he single-handedly produced.
That's a Coldplay album?
It's a Coldplay song. It's on.
Okay.
Yeah, it's.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, super cool.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to chat. And yeah, is there anywhere that people can find you? What's the best place for people to go and link with you on socials?
I mean, everywhere, man. If you got a social that you like, I guarantee you I'm on there. Just check out Grabbitz and, Instagram, Spotify, all the stuff, TikTok, unfortunately. And yeah, dude, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on. And it was a really interesting talk. Like, I love talking music with people who are as in the weeds as I am. So it's very cool.
Hell yeah. All right. Thanks, man.
Appreciate it, man. Keep in touch.
Likewise.